Hello, it's Dawn Michelle from Boho Tarot, and today I thought we'd take a look at how I've been working with the Moonchild Tarot, the Starchild Tarot, a Yogic Path Oracle, and my combined Work Your Light and Starseed Oracles. So I have done a couple of different videos and talked about a couple of these decks, sometimes multiple times on my channel. But I really wanted to take some time to share with you some of the different ways that I use them in combination. So all of these are decks with artwork by Danielle Noel. A couple of the decks are her own creations, and a couple of the decks she's just the artist on, and they were actually created by other people. So the first thing that I wanted to chat about is the Moonchild Tarot and a Yogic Path Oracle. So these two decks are really wonderful together. They are both very cosmic and a little bit ethereal, but they both feel very grounded in nature as well. They have a really wonderful energy to them that really allows them, I think, to kind of tap into that grounded energy even more when you put them together. And so I love working with these two decks together because they have that sort of similar energy. I think of a yogic path as kind of being the oracle companion to the Moonchild, because although they were created by different people in terms of their structure, the artwork is by Danielle Noel for both, and so they work really well together. So even though the Moonchild was created by Danielle Noel and the Yogic Path was created by Sahara Rose, they both have a wonderful energy that is really cohesive, and it feels very much grounded into the earth, into this reality, even though we have these really kind of cosmic, new agey, kind of far out there backgrounds, which I do quite love. But the messages between these two are really wonderful. They definitely have a grounded energy to them, and the color palette between these two decks is just amazing. They have a very similar color palette in terms of the sort of earthier tones. The saturation is a little bit less, so everything's a little bit less saturated than we'll see in some of the other decks, and it's just gorgeous together. We can definitely find areas where one card will pick up the color of another, and you just really have some wonderful play of messages going on through the artwork, through the color, and of course through the messages in both the guidebooks as well. I really do enjoy the guidebooks for both of these decks, whereas of course the Moonchild Tarot is a tarot deck and the Yogic Path is an oracle deck. I do feel that their guidebooks are very compatible in the way that they sort of approach their messages, and so they work really well together, very cohesive. But yeah, just beautiful. I just wanted to do kind of a little flip through of these two together because I think they're really gorgeous. Look at that. Beautiful. So I really enjoy working with these two decks together. They feel like a really natural, really cohesive pairing. So on the flip side of that, we have this gorgeous, really cosmic ethereal pairing with the Starchild Tarot and what I affectionately call my Lightseed Oracle, because this is actually the combined Work Your Light and Starseed Oracle. I have done a video on how I actually went through that whole process and kind of curated these two decks into one. So if you want to check that out, I will leave a link for you in the description box below. So sort of the opposite end of the spectrum with these two decks, I feel like we are very much in the starseed realm, up in the ethereal world, in the cosmos. And I think that these two decks just pair really beautifully together to actually bring that energy out. Whereas the Moonchild and the Yogic Path feel a bit more down in the earth, this feels much more up in the heavens. And I really do love this pairing together with these two decks. The Starseed Oracle are the ones with the purple bottoms, and the Work Your Light are the ones with the white bottoms. I really love the messages between these two decks. Again, we have a tarot and an oracle, so we tend to get that more structure from the tarot and a little bit more of the expansive messages coming through the oracle. So here we have the Eight of Crystals and All Paths Lead Home. I think that's just wonderful. We could kind of see this path coming around her back to self, right? Back to home as in herself. I think that's really beautiful. I really enjoy these together. I feel like they really converse really well. They have very similar energies. And the messages that I get with these two cards, these two decks together, is really wonderful. I love flipping through them too. Look at this with the Ten of Swords and the Weight of the World. Just love this. This is a deck that surprised me. I do have a walkthrough of the Starchild Tarot and an in-depth video on the Moonchild Tarot of how I work with it. But really, this is a deck that's really surprised me, and I've really enjoyed working with it, and I didn't really think it was going to. If you watched my walkthrough on this, I'm really very ho-hum in the beginning, and then things just kind of click. And ever since then, it's clicked beautifully, and I've really enjoyed working with it. And I really enjoy pairing it with the Work Your Light / Starseed Oracle. I think either one of those decks would pair beautifully with the Starchild. I just wanted to use certain cards from each of the decks, so I just kind of created my own, but I think you could do the exact same thing with either one of those decks on their own. The Five of Cups with I Remember. So since we're just sitting here chatting, the one thing that I do really like about this particular collection of Oracle decks, these are both by Rebecca Campbell with artwork by Danielle Noel. I think I forgot to mention that, whereas the Yogic Path is by Sahara Rose. The one thing that I think would have been really, really helpful on this deck is to have some keywords, because this is a deck that I pretty much have to get into the guidebook to work with it. And sometimes that does actually keep me from wanting to reach for this deck because it does require a bit more work. But I really, really love working with it, so I do it anyway, and I have thought about writing my own keywords on it. That may happen at some point. But what I really like about Rebecca Campbell's oracles is, although some of the messages do feel a bit repetitive, which is why I combined them and then took out the repetitive cards, I do really like that they have either a prompt, a question, or a key phrase on them. So it's really helpful in doing readings. And I love the way that those actually get pulled into the overall message and blends really well with the tarot. And this is my favorite card because it has an orca on it. Love that. Beautiful. Anyway, I really enjoy working with these two decks together. I really, really like the Moonchild as well, but these two decks are just, they kind of blow me away, to be perfectly honest. Of the two, so of these decks, we're just playing and chatting here, right? Of these decks, The Moonchild is my favorite. So this is my favorite Danielle Noel deck. It's very, very beautifully done. I wish the Kings and Queens were a bit older, but it is my favorite deck of hers. I really enjoy working with it. I do really like the Starchild, but the Moonchild is still my favorite. Of the oracles, the Work Your Light Starseed, I couldn't probably tell you at this point which one because I've had them mixed for quite a while now. Those are kind of my favorite oracles, but I really, really do like the Starchild. I think it's just beautiful. So these two decks I love to pair together because they really have that sort of heavenly, cosmic, starseed energy to them, and I think they work beautifully together. So that's the Starchild Tarot and the Work Your Light and Starseed oracles combined with some of the cards removed. So another fun thing that I really enjoy doing with these decks is just to mix them all together in big readings. So we can get that sort of as above, so below kind of vibe going on, or I like to see it sometimes as the sort of inner world and outer world, the microcosm and the macrocosm. There are lots of different ways that you can look at these cards together. But they really do read beautifully when you start putting them all together. So I've talked a little bit about how I work with the Moonchild Tarot in that more expansive video, but I did just want to kind of bring this in because now I have the Starchild and I didn't at the time that I made that video. So I wanted to just kind of touch base and share with you some of the ways that I like to work with these decks and really just show you how beautiful they are together. So let's kind of divvy them up and lay a couple of sample spreads. So let me just show you some of the really beautiful combinations that I like to do with this deck. or with these selections of decks. So a lot of times I like to put the yogic path in the center. You know, I love me a focal point card. Because this particular deck does require me to dive into the guidebook, I kind of like to use that more as my focal point message. Because the rest of these decks I can read either using my tarot knowledge or just based on intuition or what's on the card. Whereas this one I have to work a little bit more at it. So I tend to use this as my focus card, and then of course I will get the guidebook and read what that message is. So I might pull a Moonchild card for that really grounded, earthy energy to lay the foundation of what's beneath that main message. Then I might pull a card from the Starchild Tarot to kind of tell me what is going on in sort of the mind realm. And then I would pull a card from the combined oracle deck for what's going on in the heart. So we kind of have almost a body, heart, and soul message going on here, where the main message is actually coming from the yogic path. That's our anchor, that's our focal point. And then I'm using the other 3 decks to really dive deep into the 3 areas of self, where we have kind of body, grounding into that sense of self. We have the mind, or the kind of ethereal realm as well, from the star child, and then the heart space that we get through the combined Rebecca Campbell oracles. That's a really lovely combination that I like to do. I think I showed similar spreads in that original video, but like I said, now that I have that additional deck, I kind of just wanted to share some of the different ways that I have used it. So I do have to admit that because I do have to use the guidebook, I'm actually not prone to use this deck as much as the others. I think I would have used it a lot more had it keywords on it. It's absolutely stunning and I love the energy of it, but this is a deck that I definitely need to have the time to invest in reading the guidebook and kind of familiarizing myself with these particular words, their energies, and their messages. So that's actually not one that I use very often when I work with these cards because it does require me to do a bit more work. So the combination that I use the most when pairing all these together is to put the Star Child with the combined Oracle and the Moonchild. I do really love using all 3 of these decks together. I find that the messages are really wonderful between them all. Again, it feels like the Star Child and the Moonchild to me feel like 2 sides of the same coin. They are both very kind of in that spiritual realm for me, but I feel like the Moonchild is a bit more grounded in its energy and the Starchild is a bit more ethereal. And then you get the combined Oracle deck here, which really does feel like it taps more into that heart space for me. So in these 3 decks for me, it's kind of, we have you know, the mind, the heart, and the body, so to speak. And I really love that aspect about it. That tends to be how I actually look at these a lot of the time. So sometimes I will read them in those aspects. This is the card of the mind, the card of the heart, and the card of the body or the physical self. I read them that way a lot as well. But another thing I like to do is, of course, use my Oracle card as that central focus, that main message, and then allow the tarot to really expand outward from there. I don't think there is any real limit on what you could do with these three decks, or really it's 4 decks, because I've combined these 2 decks into one Oracle. I think that there's a lot that you can do here, a lot that you can work with these. I really love all of these decks and I really love working with them together. Sometimes I also find myself flipping them around because, you know, my designer brain wants things to be just right. And because the Star Child does have a border, sometimes I put it in the middle because it has a frame, and these 2 decks don't, so I need to switch these or I'm going to end up mixing them in together. So the Oracle decks are all borderless with just the title area at the bottom, same as the Moonchild. And so sometimes I put the Star Child in the middle just because my designer brain likes it better that way. I know, it's silly, but it creates a nice frame, a nice central focus, and then, you know, we expand outward from there. But however you decide to lay these cards all out. I think they work beautifully together. They make for some really wonderful readings when you start working with them all together. And I'm going to have just a big pile of cards when we're done because everything's just getting thrown into a big old stack. So that'll be fun to sort through when we're done chit-chatting about these decks, because look what I've done. That is all kinds of decks all mixed together. So we'll have to sort through that when we're done. Or I suppose I will. You just get a watch. So another thing that I like to do with these, because, we're just playing. I'm just playing. We already saw these cards, so let's toss them into the pile. Another thing that I like to do is to go through this particular one. Sometimes I will pull out one card from each of these decks. So I'll pull one card from I think that one's from the Starseed, one from the Work Your Light, a card from the Star Child, and a card from the Moon Child. And this makes for a really beautiful reading as well. I guess we don't need to be crouching up in there, do we? Let's pull them down where we can see them a little bit better. So I really like the way that these all read together too. Another way that you can do that is to kind of, let's just move these around because again, we're just playing. In this kind of configuration, which is something I do as well, it's like we have the two cards that are our main message, or our tarot cards, and then the oracle that kind of expands upon those message would be the two oracle cards. So that's another way that I like to kind of read them, where we have the tarot card creating our main message here. Let's just make a big pile of cards, and then we have the Starseed and the Work Your Light. So in that respect, we get the tarot card is still the foundational message, the foundational energy, and then the oracle decks just kind of expand upon that. So here we have the Magician and the Void. So it's like, stop, great cosmic womb. It's telling you to connect all that energy, right? Because the Magician is all about bringing all the things together. You already have everything you need within you. So the Void is reminding you to stop. You already have it all. You don't need to keep searching outwardly for the things that you need to do whatever it is that you are trying to accomplish. And here we have the Four of Wands and the Initiation. So that's really interesting, right? We're bringing in that kind of stable fire energy. So this is kind of telling us that we're coming from that place of stability with those Four of Wands. We're getting a little bit of that stable fire energy, and that is what we're going to take with us into the initiation as we cross that threshold. I do really like this particular setup because I think it makes for really fascinating readings. So let's just play with a few more. Really interesting. Here we have the Star with big picture thinking. How perfect is that? And the 10 of Crystals with the Great Gathering. So the 7 of Cups with cracked open. That's interesting, right? Surrender to the alchemy of life. And we have the Magician again, this time with Unbound. Releasing the soul patterns, contracts, and past lives. How beautiful is that? And then we'll just mix them all together and add to my big creative pile here. So yeah, I really, really enjoy, look what I did here. I really enjoy working with all of these decks together. I really have enjoyed playing with them as well and kind of figuring out what energies each deck has and how that energy resonates when you put it with one of the other decks. Like, how do they converse together, what they pull out, how they help me to connect. It's been a really wonderful experience, and I've really enjoyed working with these. These are definitely decks that I work with quite often, and they're kind of staples of my collection at this point. And I just really wanted to share with you a little bit about how I found them and how I've been working with them, and kind of just have a little bit of a play. So that was a look at the Moon Child Tarot, the Star Child Tarot, the Yogic Path Oracle, and my combined Starseed and Work Your Light Oracle. All of these decks have artwork by Danielle Noel. Yogic Path Oracle is by Sahara Rose, and the Work Your Light and Starseed Oracles are by Rebecca Campbell. But again, all have this absolutely gorgeous artwork from Danielle Noel. I do believe she has a new Oracle deck or two coming out, so I'm excited for that because I do really like her artwork. And I do really enjoy reading with her decks. For me, her decks are very spiritual. They're very much in the ethereal realm, but also really grounded into the heart space, which is really interesting. I don't know that I have many other decks in my collection that I would say that exact same thing about. And I think that's one of the reasons that I really like these decks is they help me connect not only to like my own heart space and my own spirituality, but they do help me to kind of connect on that more cosmic level. And so that's really been a lot of fun to work with. And I've actually had some really wonderful readings with these decks, kind of using them in that way. So I hope you enjoyed this look at the collection of decks with artwork by Danielle Noel. I would love to know if you have any of these decks and what your experiences have been with them. So please feel free to share with me in the comments below. Now we get to play Resort the Cards because oh my goodness, look what I did. Look what I did. Okay, Moonchild, Starchild. Oh look, here's some more Moonchild. Yogic Path. Found some Work Your Light cards over there. Moonchild. Love that card. Ooh, Magician. Your Life is a Canvas. That's my favorite one. Okay, not the favorite, one of my favorites. I know I say that a lot. I always say this is my favorite and that is my favorite. I know because somebody pointed it out, which was really funny. But I have a lot of favorites. It's cool, so I have a lot of decks. Get to play, stack the cards, stack the cards, stack the cards. I think I just realized that these decks are all pretty much the same size. I think you could probably mix them into one gigantic deck. Ooh, pretty close, pretty close. Nope, the Moonchild's a little bit thinner. The Moonchild. I wish they were all that thin. Okay, so now I have to restack them again. Come here, you little surprise deck. Starchild. Yogic Path. Why don't you have keywords? You're beautiful, but I would use you so much more if you had keywords. And my little combined little mutant deck. Love my mutant deck. Whew, I did it. It's all done. Now I gotta edit this thing. Thank you for joining me today. You'll find links for everything featured here in the description box below. I hope you enjoyed this video and I look forward to seeing you again soon for more creative tarot for an inspired life.